The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, hey everyone, this is Dennis Caye with Belize Islands Real Estate. Going to be talking to you today about the beautiful country of Belize and very specifically some of the exciting things happening on the island of Ambergris, Caye, Belize. So listen, it's 12 o'clock noon Eastern time on the dot. What I'd like to do is just to allow another minute or two for people to log on and attend because we're going to have a pretty full house here today. And what happens is usually sometimes people have to reboot their computers or they don't realize they have to download an app in order to attend. So out of respect for them, let's just give them to about 12:02, 12:03 so everybody can enjoy this right from the start. And so again, I'd like to thank all of you for attending. And if you would, just do me a favor. This is a live presentation. I'm coming to you live today. It is December 14th, noon Eastern time. And what I like to do here is make this very interactive. So if you have questions that you need answers to, please go ahead and type those in the questions box. I'm going to be answering as many of them live as I possibly can today. For those I can't get to, I'll follow up with you personally. But please go ahead and ask me those questions, and we're going to have a lot of fun today. So one thing I like to do is just do a quick sound check. So if you can hear me okay, please type in yes, either in the chat box or in the questions box, wherever you find it convenient. If you can't hear me okay, well then you probably won't respond. But for those of you who I'm getting through, please let me know you can hear my voice. Are you getting through? Am I getting through okay? Anyone typing in yes? Can everybody hear me? All right. I am not seeing any responses, which might mean there's an issue with my audio. Oh, there we go. All right. Whew. Thanks a lot, guys. All right. I appreciate it. Excellent. So very nice. Again, this is going to be a lot of fun today. I usually try to host these webinars each and every week because there's always something new to present, information that has just come online or just been a big announcement about something regarding one thing or another. And I find that these types of webinars are an excellent way for me to stay in touch with my current client base, but also to help educate newcomers or those just looking at Belize and trying to decide where they want to invest offshore. So that might be Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, they're looking at Panama, maybe other places in the United States, and they're trying to decide which is the best fit for them. And so I find these webinars to be very, very helpful. So it is 12:02. Let me just do a quick thing here before we begin officially. There's two polls that I like to do, one at the beginning and one at the end of the webinar, just so I can know how to adjust the content of them moving forward. So I'm just going to launch a poll here. You'll see it on the screen. If you would just tell me, if you're attending today and you are already a client and own property in Island, just click the number 1 box. If you receive my regular Belize newsletter and updates, click number 2. And if you're a newbie and you just came across this webinar from maybe one of my Facebook ads or through my website, please click 3. And I'm asking these questions just so I know how to tailor the content so I make it most useful to my audience. So please just go ahead and vote. When you're done voting, I will conclude. Give it another 10 seconds here, and then we'll begin the webinar. And actually, what I'll do is I'll actually share it because I find it pretty interesting, the information myself. So I'm going to close out the poll, and I'm going to share the results. So you can see 17% already own property, 50% regularly receive my updates, and 33% might be considered newbies. So excellent. So this webinar is going to be very specific in the sense that it has been put together to answer many of your questions that you've been asking me over the past week. So if you're attending this webinar and you already own property, some of this information might already be known to you. You might pick up 1 or 2 more things that you didn't know that could be useful. But what I'm going to do for you property owners is next Thursday evening, I have a very special webinar coming out that has some really interesting detailed information regarding the new airport that is set to be built in Ambergris, Caye, some other things that you may not have known about that are affecting property values in very specific areas, some new infrastructure going in that we just received word on. So especially next week, you current property owners are going to be really, really interested in that. But for now, let's just sort of get on with today's program. So again, for many of you newbies, you probably know where Belize is because you've been looking at it on the internet, I'm sure, for a while now. It's surrounded by Mexico, Guatemala, and Honduras, and has two components to it. It has a mainland component, which is considered really part of Central America, and then you have the Caribbean component, the islands, and that's where I really prefer. It gives me that island lifestyle that I've always wanted. So this is the island of Ambergris, Caye, Belize. It is 25 miles long by 4 miles wide at its widest. It is about 8 to 9% developed. So 90% of it is in its pure native raw form, and a good number of that area is set aside for marine parks and national reserves, kind of like state land that we have in Canada, the United States. So just a really prime island, and it has that old Key West feel that many people like. And Steph and I, my wife, we lived on the mainland for several years, different parts, scoping out different areas. But then we spent the majority of our time on Ambergris, Caye, Belize. So I am most familiar with this island as a real estate investment, but I also do some in Placencia, Corozal, Caye, other areas. So if you have questions about those areas, feel free to ask. I can definitely help you out and point you in the right direction. One of the things that I was privileged to do on the island of Ambergris Caye is to be involved in the filming of several TV shows. So you might be familiar with the show House Hunters International. I filmed a beautiful episode for them showing Serena from Calgary, a beautiful Canadian lady around the island. She did end up purchasing a condo, and so it was really fun being involved in this. And because of this, I was able to achieve my little 15 or 17 minutes of fame that you might say. But also for HDTV, I shot several episodes of a show called Live Here Buy This. I was the showing real estate agent, and we showed several properties on the island of Ambergris Caye, but also we went to the mainland, to Caye, to Belmopan, to other areas. We shot properties in the jungle, and it was really a lot of fun. So you might have seen me on these shows and kind of get an idea of who I am, but there you are. So what are we going to learn in today's webinar? Well, I'm going to cover one important topic called reasons why people buy. Why are they choosing offshore in the first place? And why are they choosing Belize over other countries such as Panama, Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, things like that? So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the 7 things you must know before you even consider investing offshore. And this is based on mistakes that I've seen people make over and over again, because as the saying goes, you don't know what you don't know, especially when you're treading into unfamiliar territory like purchasing property or even spending extended time in an area overseas. We're going to talk about how to use Belize real estate as a possible investment. We're talking about financial investment, also lifestyle and personal use investment. So we're going to sort of break out the two to talk about what properties might be more suitable for each type of owner. And then we're going to finally talk about some tax minimization and asset protection strategies that I think everybody can use no matter what property they end up purchasing. So first of all, reasons why people buy, or as I like to always ask, what are you running from? So somebody sends me an email, gives me a phone call and says, Dennis, I'm interested in coming to Belize. I say, great. What are you running from? Because they're not really coming to Belize. They're running from something that they don't like where they currently are most of the time. And that can be living in high-stress cities where there's a lot of traffic, there's a lot of noise, a lot of pollution. It could be that they're running from the cold, especially this time of year. Coming into November and December, I have a lot of Canadians, not surprisingly, email me from Toronto and Alberta and the different provinces, because that first taste of that ice cold weather, shoveling snow, driving in that ice, they think, you know what, maybe I can get out of here for 3 or 4 months and become a snowbird, as they call it. Or it can just be that they're looking for a new start. So, you know, I've had people come and say, Dennis, I've been recently divorced, or I lost someone in death and I realized that life is short. So now's the time for me to take a step forward in this next chapter of my life. And so we find that people are buying for different reasons, and it's interesting to get to know these reasons. One of the things that I've noticed is for those who are looking to retire, and I'm not just talking older people, I'm talking young people in their 40s. I have a good number of clients right now in their late 30s, early 40s who are buying property in Belize now so that they can have something to retire to when they're 55, 60, 65. So they're planning long term. And what we find is that our actual retirees, those who are buying and moving to Belize permanently now or spending, say, 4 or 5, 6 months a year there are very active even in their older years. So we have people in their 65, 70, 75, even a couple clients who are 80 years old and older, and they live a much more active lifestyle. Now, this picture I find kind of funny because this reminds me of what I always thought retirement was, because I watched my grandparents and great grandparents after they retired, and they pretty much did this. They sat on the front porch swing and just kind of sat around and I guess waited to pass. And we find that retirees today aren't like that. They're healthier because we have better medicine now for the most part. People are taking better care of their health. They're very active. And so even in retirement, they're looking to travel, explore, do things, and really make the best use of those golden years. Now, the question is, what does your retirement look like? And so do you plan on staying where you are in retirement? Or do you plan on traveling a bit, spending time somewhere in a tropical climate? I have a client who is down, who I was touring, looking at property with. Beautiful story. This is awesome. It's going to make you laugh. She said, Dennis, as we're seeing several condos, she said, Dennis, I have 9 grandkids, and we had just looked at a 2-bedroom condo. And I said, well, what are we doing looking at 2 bedrooms for? We absolutely need to look at a larger place, a home, a 3 or 4 bedroom condo. She goes, no. She goes, you don't understand. She says, I have 9 grandkids and they all live in the same city as me. She says, I am not becoming a full-time babysitter. As much as I love them, she says, I want to be with my husband away from them for 2, 3, 4 months a year. So I would actually prefer a 1-bedroom. If they want to come visit, they can get their own place. And I thought, you know what? It's interesting. It's interesting because, of course, my parents are grandparents, and we love our nieces and nephews. But maybe you don't want to be tied to that extent to family. And so you want some of that freedom, some of that independence that having a place in another location, a vacation home of some sort, gets you. And maybe you don't want to put up with the cold anymore. And as we get older, we become less and less tolerant to the cold. I know I just spent a week in the ski town of Chamonix, France. And for that week, I loved the snow. I loved it. But I wouldn't want to live in that type of climate year round. I just don't enjoy that anymore. So another reason why people buy is because they're looking for family time, some place to build precious memories. And, you know, there's nothing like going on holiday with the family to have those extended times, those lingering breakfasts, those long conversations over a glass of wine or a little tumbler of scotch at the end of the evening, watching the fire, watching the sunset. You know, I don't live near my parents anymore, but at least once a year we try to get together. Last year was their 50th anniversary, so we took them on a 50th anniversary cruise along with the brothers and sisters and nieces and nephews, and had a beautiful time. But today, almost a year later, we still talk about those memories. Every time we get on Skype together, we talked about, oh, do you remember what we ate and what we saw and how we swam with the dolphins? And those are memories that are difficult to create where you live now. Sometimes it's just good for everybody to get away. And so we find that with Belize, a lot of times people are buying places so that they can take the family somewhere at least once a year, twice a year, build those memories, spend that quality time before it's too late, because we know sometimes life is too short. And then finally, the one key group of buyers that I'm really interested in is the investors, because what they're doing is they're choosing an offshore place to put some money for various reasons. It's not always Belize, of course, but a high number are looking to Belize for several reasons. They're looking to get some money out of the stock market. They don't feel comfortable having all their money in US dollars. They're looking for a place that gives them better returns without the volatility that they often see in the US stock market or even with US real estate. They're looking for something that offers them tax advantages and somewhere that you can really invest in, where there are several opportunities. And we're going to talk about a couple of those later. So these are just some of the reasons why people are buying in the US. And to just further that a little bit, many are coming to me and saying, Dennis, I think it's time to take some of my cash, specifically cash that I have in my self-directed IRA. Can I buy property in Belize? Well, yes. This is something that I talk about often in my webinars because it's an untapped market. There are millions and millions of dollars being held right now by people's IRAs in the US, and they want somewhere to put it. And now that they've realized that they can buy offshore property, especially in Belize, with that money in their IRA, they're thinking, finally, I can make an investment outside of the US into Belize real estate using this money that I just have sitting here that's basically not doing anything. And one of the reasons that they're doing this is because of what I'm going to show you in this next slide. Now, I just pulled this off the internet yesterday. This is the usdebtclock.org. It's actually a very depressing website to visit. If you haven't done so, don't bother. It's not any fun. But there are now, as of last night, 5 o'clock p.m., there are 20 trillion, 589 billion, 305,125,685 reasons to invest offshore, because as of last night, that was the national debt. And people don't feel comfortable with this, all right? It's making people nervous because, when I first started doing these webinars, only probably 4 years ago, I think it was 14 million. And so it's up just a huge, huge number. And here's even the more scary thing. The debt per taxpayer is over 170,000 US dollars per taxpayer. And what that means is, in order to somehow even start to tackle that debt, there's going to have to be an adjustment in taxes. Now, if you've been following this in the United States right now, whether it's this policy or this change or the one that happened 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, taxes are always going to be changing. And most likely, they're going to be going up for everybody at some point, because this can't continue on forever. If you look at the history of U.S. taxes from about 1916 up until the present time, you see actually taxes were a lot higher around World War II and just after. We have right now, historically, some of the lowest taxes U.S. taxpayers have ever paid. And we don't want to hear that, because we already think we're being overtaxed. But trust me, you go to places like France, you go to places like Norway, the taxes there are just insane. So there are good reasons to believe that taxes will go up. And when they do, where will most of your money be coming from? Will you have offshore investments that you can shield legally from being taxed, or will they all be in the U.S. Taxed at U.S. rates? So this is something very important that my clients need to consider. So what does this information mean to you so far? Well, you might fall into one of these categories. You might be looking to purchase in Belize because of your lifestyle, to have a vacation home, to set yourself up for retirement, or you might be an investor. You want really nothing to do with Belize. You don't like the tropics. You don't like the sand and sun. So you're just looking for a financial vehicle to invest in, or because you're scared and you want a plan B. If things go south in the US or Canada, you want a place to call home, a soft spot to land. You want that comfort knowing that something out there exists for you if you need it. And so if you fall into one of these categories, you know your stand. But what if you don't? What do you say? You say to yourself, Dennis, I don't really care why other people are buying on Ambergris Caye. But actually you should. Because if you are buying as an investor, you need to know what the market drivers are. Why are other people buying that's going to make your investment turn a profit? What is driving the occupancy rates? What is driving the appreciation in vacant land and other properties, private islands? If you're looking at it for a retirement standpoint, you need to ask, what are the services and amenities that will most likely be there for my enjoyment when I retire? What direction is the island going in? And so we want to talk about all these things, because it all goes in to making a good decision regarding where you buy and if Belize is right for you in the first place. So here we have a question. Okay, I get all that, but why are people choosing Belize? Why not Costa Rica, Panama, Dominican Republic, other places in the U.S. like Arizona or Florida, which have beautiful climates and beautiful infrastructure, services, and amenities? Well, here are some reasons that we've identified through polling our current client database regarding why they have purchased Belize and why in the future we expect more and more people to do so. First of all, and this is very important, English is the official language of Belize. Why? Because it used to be British Honduras, so it came under the British Commonwealth. So we are officially English speaking, and this is different than Some countries like to say, well, we speak English here too. For instance, you go to Panama City, you go to parts of Costa Rica. Sure, you can find real estate agents and lawyers and bankers that speak English too because they service that English community. However, there are certain advantages to having English as the official language, especially as it comes to doing business in a country. For example, the main language is English, the official language is English, so you're able to communicate freely and openly with anybody. So you go in to set up your bank account, English is the main language used. English on the forms. You go into your lawyers, to your closing company, and you want to sign some title transfers, some legal documents. None of those have to be translated from Spanish or another language into English. There's no nuances to miss. If you need medical care, and at times you may, so you go in to see your doctor, or worse, you go into a hospital with an emergency. You can talk to your anesthesiologist, your surgeon, your doctor, the nurses. Everyone speaks English. And finally, if you're going to spend a long time in a country, and I'm talking sometimes 4 to 6 months a year, it's nice to be able to read all the newspapers, the social media, and have that English be your home language. Now, that's not to say, of course, that you can't learn to speak Spanish or not, but a lot of people, they're not going to try to learn Spanish to move to Costa Rica and use it fluently enough to do some of these important things that you would want to do if you're an investor in real estate in a certain country. So that brings us up to the next point. We talked about the medical situation. We talked about doctors, surgeons, anesthesiologists all speaking English. So the question I had come up several times this week is, what is the situation regarding medical in Belize? Well, let me tell you, from personal experience, it is incredible. Belize is a developing country, no doubt about it, but it has excellent medical services. And I can give you some real world examples. Number one, my wife and I are living on the island of Ambergris, Caye, Belize. She wakes up one morning in extreme pain up in the stomach area, almost like I thought she was dying. So we rushed her into the doctor's office, which was literally about 200 feet from our apartment. They quickly did a scan, realizes that she had some pancreas problems, not pancreas, but gallbladder problems. We were on a flight to Belize City, which is a short 14, 15-minute flight. We flew her to Belize City, and she was in the hospital bed with an IV, seeing a doctor within 18 minutes after we left the island. So think about this. Woke up at 6 o'clock, had the doctor's appointment, at the airport by 7, in the plane, flew to Belize City, taxied to the airport, or excuse me, taxied to the private hospital, which is about 1 mile away, and within literally 18 minutes, she had an IV in and she was being treated. One day later, she had an operation, complete success. It was pennies on the dollar from what we would pay in the United States, but that's not the point, because when you're sick like this and need help, money's not an issue. But she was treated like gold. Fantastic. Took good care of her. I also have another dear friend. He was living on the island of Caye. One night he had a severe brain aneurysm. Actually ended up being 4 brain aneurysms busted at one time. Almost went comatose on the island. We were able to fly him over again to the same hospital. After a consultation with a brain surgeon, they agreed to operate on him. Took them 4 hours, saved his life. 1 month later, he flew back to Florida for a checkup, and the doctor says, you should be dead. There is no reason they should have been able to save you based on the x-rays we just saw. So I can tell you stories like this time and time again, but very good medical care in Belize. So if you're coming down concerned about that, do not worry, we got you covered. Also, what you need to take a look at is the government and its stability of the country you're looking at investing in. So for example, you look at Mexico, Dominican Republic, Honduras, maybe you're looking at the Bay Islands of Honduras to see how those compare with Ambergris Caye. Roatan's a beautiful place. But again, look at the differences, the major differences between an island like Roatan and the island of Ambergris Caye. Both kind of look similar. Both have maybe equal opportunities to snorkeling, diving, fishing, things like that. Both have nice, friendly people living on it. But the island of Roatan is part of Honduras. The Honduran government has shown itself not to be as stable as other governments that you might want to invest in, such as Belize. And Belize, it's a stable democratic government, a two-party system, never had a civil war in Belize, never had a military coup, never had an overthrowing of the government. It has been absolutely solid. And that's not to say they haven't had their arguments and disputes and whatnot like every government in the world has today. But by and large, it has shown itself to be very welcoming of expats. They treat Americans, Canadians, Europeans very well. They have a very open arm, welcoming spirit, which goes to show even in the way they handle their real estate transactions. They offer expat investments just as much protections and guarantees to property and ownership as they do their own natural-born Belizean citizens. So just an excellent, excellent government to invest in. Along with that, we have secure property ownership in Belize. In Belize, we have fee simple title. It's based on the same legal structures we have in the United States and Canada. So you actually have title. You don't have a lease. You don't have a 99-year lease. It's not like you have to own some corporation in order to have a local involved so you can own it. Nope. Your name can be on the title as a registered owner of that property. And again, you have very secure property rights in Belize. Also, one more thing is its proximity and easy access to the United States. Again, just a few years ago, when I started hosting these live webinars, we had direct flights out of Miami, Houston, and Dallas, and that was it. Now we have direct flights from Chicago, New York, Charlotte, Atlanta, Miami, Houston. Now we have even direct flights coming out of Calgary, coming out of Toronto. So we added Canada this year as direct flights from those key hub cities down to BZE, our international airport in Belize. And what this is really useful for and helpful for is if you need to travel back and forth often, let's say you have family, or maybe there's a family emergency and you get that dreaded call in the middle of the night and says, you know, come home, we need you home. You can very quickly, the next day, board a flight and be back to the U.S., back to or Canada very, very quickly. And it's nice to be on the same time zone. Again, a lot of my clients that have purchased and used property in Belize have businesses in North America of one sort or another. So they like to keep in contact. And this way it allows them some normalcy of business hours. So they can get on the internet, Skype, have little WhatsApp groups or little chats throughout the day when people are in the office and they need to engage in that contact. So very, very interesting. So why do I view these things as important enough to present in this webinar? Because these are the foundational pillars that I think are way more important than any real estate offering I could present to you. And here's why. You can find beautiful properties in all sorts of countries all over the world. You can find ocean view, beachfront, remote, bustling, all over. But what's more important than the prettiness of the property is the foundation. So if you're going to take your hard-earned money and put it into a country, you need to remember you're not just buying a specific piece of real estate, you're buying everything else that is underneath it. So these are the reasons why I feel Belize is attracting a higher percentage of expats, retirees, and investors over and above some other countries that have been popular in the past. Now let's go on to the issue of taxes in Belize, because this also goes hand in hand with those other foundational pillars. Just let me grab a sip of water here. So first of all, Belize is a tax haven. It is a place that has very low income tax, very low business tax. So if you move to Belize, you open up a business of some sort, a beach bar, cafe, restaurant, whatever it is, you have very low income and business taxes. Most of it is around 5% of the gross on those two things. And also, as a real estate investor, it's very interesting because you have no capital gains taxes at all in Belize. So if you buy a beachfront property for, say, $125,000, a couple years, you sell it for $175, $200, whatever the going rate is at that time. In Belize, you pay zero capital gains taxes. Even if you double, triple, quadruple your money, you have no tax owed at all in Belize. And maybe not in the U.S., depending on how you set up your investment structure. Also, we have very low property taxes in Belize. Now, this is significant for the following reason. I did a quick comparison because I had a client looking at buying a two-bedroom condo in Belize compared to a similar two-bedroom condo in Miami, downtown Miami Beach. So here are the way the numbers worked out. At Grand Caribe, which is what you see a picture of on the left-hand side, there is a two-bedroom, two-bath condo for sale for 475,000 US. The property taxes are $450 US per year. So if you stretch that out, you say, okay, over a 10-year period of ownership, you will pay just over $5,000 US in property taxes. Now, take a similar condo in Miami, two bedroom, two bath. The price is lower, $399,000. I happen to pick a lower price condo for this comparison. Property taxes there are $5,000 plus per year, depending on if it's a primary home, a secondary home, or whatnot, a rental. So 10-year ownership in Miami is going to cost you $50,000 compared to just over $5,000 in Belize. So it's just one factor that I think people should take into consideration when looking at owning a vacation home in somewhere in a warmer climate. But basically, what I love about Belize is not only all those things, because those are all technical. Those are what I feel are important. But in Belize, the people are very, very warm. They're welcoming. In fact, when you come to Ambergris Caye, or when you go into other areas such as Caye or Placencia or some of these different areas, you quickly realize that we don't have what many other Caribbean islands and countries have, and that is the gated communities. There's no barbed wire fencing that sort of put up this barrier, this very loud barrier between expats having their little portion of paradise and the locals who happen to live there, which is, kind of rude, but that's the way some people think. And so, like, when you go to places like Dominican Republic and Jamaica, places like this, you'll see a definite us and them mentality. In Belize, you won't find gated communities. You'll find locals living with the expats, neighboring them, becoming friends with them. Some people ask me, is there a large expat community in Ambergris Caye, Belize? Because I want to make friends. I say, yes, but don't plan on making friends with the expats, because the locals are so friendly. The locals will become your friends, oftentimes way sooner than the expats will. So you have all that. You have the stability of the country, the underlying foundational pillars, the beautiful, sincere, friendly people, someplace you can feel comfortable. And then after all that, then we can talk about what is really drawing you to the country in the first place. Maybe that's why you got on this webinar, because you thought to yourself, I can see myself doing things in a tropical Caribbean island like fishing. There's a picture of my fishing guide, Dilson, catching a beautiful amberjack. Go out fishing with Dilson, reef fishing, deep sea fishing. Go snorkeling, diving at Ho Chan Reef or Ho Chan Marine Reserve. Take advantage that Belize has one of the largest national marine parks in the world, full of marine life, dolphins, manatees. Beautiful snorkeling and diving and fishing, some of the best in the world, incredible local food. The seafood is just to die for. There's drinks. There's Trevor, one of my favorite bartenders, making a pink watermelon martini. And the fact that we use golf carts on Ambergris Caye. I mean, what can be better than that? You're driving your golf cart around just after diving and snorkeling. You're driving around the island, popping into your favorite restaurant for some conch fritters or lobster or shrimp, living the dream. But that's only possible if all those other things I mentioned are in place to allow you then to truly enjoy yourself in the country. So now what I want to do is just switch gears just a little bit and talk about real estate as a vehicle of investment. And here's what I mean by that. There's two groups of people basically that are buying. The first group of people are buying for pure use and enjoyment. They want a place to use. They don't want no hassle. They want a condo or a single family home, something where they can come and use, have the kids, have the grandkids, maybe come stay with them or in a nearby rental unit. They want to enjoy all that family time, build those memories, and they could care less about the financial return. In other words, they're going to spend this money. They're going to plop down this money, have this piece of real estate in their portfolio, and they don't care if it returns a cent, because they're not buying for that reason. they're buying for pure use and enjoyment. And that makes up probably about 50% of my buying clientele. So what type of option would be good for them? Well, this is just an example because this is not even my listing. I have no vested interest in presenting this to you. It's not my listing, not a resort that I often represent, but this is called Belizean Shores Resort. It's a beautiful property. This is a brand new pool that they just built. It's composed of several one-bedroom condos located on two levels. So you have a lower level or you have an upper level. They are 100% privately owned by people mainly from the US and Canada. And once in a while, one of the units will come up for sale. And that is what happened in the past week. So this is a unit that came up. It's a one bedroom, one bath, completely furnished condo, turnkey. The purchase price on it, or the listing price, I should say, is $250,000 US. Now, as a bonus, this resort property is part of the Sandy Point Resorts family of properties, which also include Cocoa Beach, which is existing right now, 100% complete, which is located immediately to the south of Belizean Shores Resort, but also the new Wyndham Grand Belize property that is being built and is set to open next year, either late 2018, beginning of 2019. So what this means is for an affordable price, what we call this is a bargain condo in an expensive neighborhood. Cocoa Beach properties start at $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000. The beachfront and beach view condos at Wyndham Grand start at $650,000, go up to $1.4 million. Most of their beachfront offerings in the Wyndham Grand are $1.2, $1.4 million. Outstanding, beautiful luxury properties. So what we have here is Belizean Shores Resort as part of these three in a row. And as an owner in one, you get to use the facilities of the rest. So the gyms, the pools, the bars, the restaurants, all of the access to the tourist type things that are offered from the docks, from the piers of these places. So you get to become a part of the entire family of Sandy Point Resort. So that's a key benefit. So you get personal use with this type of condo. And really, honestly, it doesn't get much better than this because what you have is a safe, secure, family-friendly place with absolutely no worries. And what this allows you to do, because most of my clients come back at a certain time each year, on average about the same time. So for instance, if you have kids in school, maybe you spend every Christmas and New Year's and perhaps the spring break around Easter. And so what happens is other families who also own typically go back to the resort at that same time. So you become friends with the parents, the kids become friends. It's sort of like going up to grandma's cabin in the summer. You always have those same type of people that you see. Once in a while you meet new friends, but it really provides a community type atmosphere to buy into. So it's really different than owning, say, a vacation home in Arizona or Florida where you might not know your neighbors that good. In Belize, you're going to be doing things with your neighbors, fishing with them, going out to dinner. It's really a community atmosphere. And if you're looking for rental income to offset some of the expenses of ownership, this condo is excellently managed by Sandy Point Management. They have very, very good occupancy rates. And so something like this is perfect for someone looking for personal enjoyment, somewhere to build memories with their family. Now, what are the downsides, or what are the questions that come up why a person would not be interested in a place like this? Well, first of all, let me just get through the some of the gratuitous shots here of the resort. I put those in slides just so I could show you. Here you go. So one objection could be, well, it's a one bedroom. I wanted a two bedroom. All right. So that's very common. We find that some people want a two bedroom, obviously, because they have kids, they have grandkids, other family they want to invite. But here's the thing, and I've seen this time and time again. If you have a one bedroom condo, say just for you and your spouse, then when other people do come, what typically happens is all you do is you look around, in the same resort you're at or on Airbnb, and you find something that you would like your family to stay in. And perhaps it's the same resort, perhaps it's a resort 2 or 3 blocks away, but it also affords you some privacy. And so the price point difference is very significant. For example, this one bedroom is 250,000. To get a 2 bedroom condo on the ocean with these types of views is going to cost you at least 450,000. So another 200,000. So you need to ask yourself, is it really worth it for me to spend an extra 150, 200,000 or more just so that those family members can stay in my own square foot? Or might those funds be put to better use, even treating them on occasion, paying for their expenses at another resort, and giving them their privacy? So one of the things I've learned from traveling extensively with family and friends is that sometimes at night, you just need your own privacy. You don't want somebody on top of you, because then the next day, you're ready to see them again. But spending 24/7 with people sometimes can result in, we'll just say, result to some issues. So another objection might be, how much does this unit net per year as an investment? Remember, I didn't show you this as an investment opportunity. This is an affordable option in an expensive neighborhood, but it does not turn a high profit. For example, this unit nets about $4,000 per year after all expenses. So after your HOA fees, your insurance, your property taxes, you will get back in cash about $4,000 US per year. So not a significant return, but remember, you've also been able to enjoy it. And the personal use on this place is 28 days a year. So you're allowed 4 weeks of personal use. Other than that, it's being rented out, and then you pay nothing, and you get a small return at the end of the year. So a nice place for snowbirds, or if retirement's a ways out, an excellent place. But not what I would recommend as a financial investment vehicle. Now, just for comparison, here is why. Let me show you another option. What if a financial investment is more important to you than having your own place to use in Belize? Well, again, using the same criteria, what you're going to look for is a bargain property in what will be, not what is now, but what will be an expensive neighborhood. Again, look at what's happening with Cocoa Beach, Wyndham Grand, Belizean Shores. This started to be an expensive neighborhood about 4 or 5 years ago, and it's now really becoming expensive with the Wyndham Grand. So what you want to do as an investor is you want to look for properties. They can be condos, homes, vacant land in areas that have a high degree of likelihood to really become an expensive neighborhood. And as an investor, you're not just looking for cheap property, because I can show you cheap property all over Ambergris Caye on the mainland, jungle property, where you can get jungle property for $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 an acre. And in 10 years, it's still going to be worth $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 because there's nothing around it. It's in the middle of nowhere, and there will never be anything around it. But what you want to do is look for a bargain investment in an area that is currently just at the cusp of taking off because of what's happening in the general area. Now, those things, what we call look for in the path of progress, those things can be such things as our new roads going into an area, opening up an area that never had access before, or are there utilities going in a certain area? For example, if an area does not have power currently, is there good reason to believe in the next year, 2, 3, or 4 that they will get access to electric, internet, maybe some city sewer, city water? Is there some other type of infrastructure going in that's going to cause a little mini explosion in that area? As an example, on the north side of Ambergris Caye, in 2015, the government of Belize announced that it was their intent to build a new international airport on the island. And I go into extensive detail about this in a different presentation. Well, just yesterday, they signed a memorandum of understanding (MAO) on the moving forward with getting things in place to kick off this. I'm not going to talk about it now in detail because I'm going to save that to next Thursday, but that is significant because right now there is hardly anything going on in this area of North Ambergris, Cape Belize. But once that starts, you're going to see a massive, massive increase in property values. So what would be the smart thing to do is now, before this happens, to look for bargain properties. And what you want to do also is notice in the second bullet point, what brings natural or added attention to an area. For example, a beautiful beach brings attention. People want to go and sit on a beautiful beach. So those bring eyeballs to the area. But what is also bringing attention to the area? Are there restaurants going in? Are there new resorts opening up? Is there something else driving more eyeballs to a certain area of the country? For instance, the international airport, or in the case of some of the West Side properties, for what Leonardo DiCaprio is doing with Blackador Caye, that is bringing attention to that entire Ambergris Bay area, causing more people to look there, more eyeballs, more interest in property, more sales, higher values, we see appreciation. And even then, what we like to do is look for distressed sellers, sellers that need to sell or have a desire to sell. Maybe they want to take advantage of another investment opportunity, or they just need the money. Sometimes they're sending a kid to college or gone through a divorce, or for one reason or another, they're looking to cash out. Look for those types of deals in those types of good areas. As an example, one area that meets these criteria is called Secret Beach, Belize, or the Ambergris Bay area of Ambergris Caye. It's located on the west side. This area right now is attracting a lot of new eyeballs, a lot of attention, because of the new road that was recently put in that allows easy access to this area. Several new businesses have gone in. Several restaurants, beach bars. There is a new bed and breakfast that has recently gone in. It is driving a lot of attention to the area because it gets a lot of locals there who come after work to hang out, to enjoy the beach. Also, a lot of tourists. This is becoming the #1 tourist destination on the island for those who want to grab a golf cart with a picnic basket or just go and hang out on a secluded beach in a remote part of the island. And with Leonardo DiCaprio's island just offshore and some other islands that are going to be developed soon, it's bringing a lot of eyeballs to the area. So this is one of those properties that I highly suggest you take a look at. As an example, this is just an example, there is a property on the main road leading to where these beach bars and Airbnbs are located, and it is in a prime location to open up some sort of commercial business. So if you have a business in mind that would benefit from high traffic, high golf cart traffic that is, then this could be a property that I would suggest you invest in. It doesn't have to be for that reason. You can invest in it as a future place for retirement home you just want easy access to. But this is interesting because it has fee simple title, full ownership. You can do residential or commercial on it, and it is priced at $79,479. The sellers have authorized me to sell it on this webinar to my webinar attendees for $75,000 US as a special. They're willing to cut the break because of several reasons. Number one is because we don't have to spend a lot more money advertising it, and also there's no broker co-commission fee to pay out. So we get to keep the money internally in the office, so to speak. And so we're able to offer a discount if it's sold to somebody who attends this webinar. Now, where is it located exactly? Well, here you see an aerial picture of Secret Beach. You see the red box at the top. That's parcel number 8793. It's a 100-foot by a 100-foot lot. The blue line represents the east-west connection road, the only road on the entire island, and you can verify this. Go to Google Earth after this webinar. The only road to connect both sides of the island is this main east-west connection road, and it dead ends right here at Secret Beach. Here is a picture of the lot. You can see it's high. It's got beautiful trees on it. It's ready to build on, ready to go. You don't have to do much at all when it comes to infrastructure as far as getting it ready to build on. Here is a government issued plot map showing the lot. You see it's on the upper right-hand side there. There's two lots shown in the red square. The one in the upper is 8793. That's the one for sale. That's with the webinar special. And again, the blue road leading off to the upper left, which dead ends at the beach. Now, interesting, because you might say to yourself, I'm not an investor. I don't care about land. I only want that condo or something like it. Look at these numbers just as they appeal to different types of buyers. And now a lot of this webinar will make complete sense to you. Let's take the condo, for example. The purchase price on the condo is $250,000 plus closing costs. So you're going to have about $275,000 into it. Your net return, your financial return on that is $4,000 a year. Plus, you get the personal use and enjoyment, which is why you bought that in the first place. So if the nightly rental rate is $150 times 28 days, that's $4,200. So let's say total financial return, forget about the personal use and enjoyment, the total financial return on that investment, that cash investment, is about $8,200 US a year. That's really what you're getting back financially. That's about a 3% return on a $275,000 investment. So this is not what I would recommend if you are looking for the financial return, but it does offer you all those benefits of being part of a community, having your own place. When you get there, your bathing suit's there, your toothbrush is there, you open the door and you are home. So this is what I would recommend for building those memories. Now, if you're an investor, look at the next slide and see why I would not recommend this condo for an investor. All right. Let me go back. All right, so with this piece of vacant land that is near Secret Beach, you have a $75,000 price tag. That's your investment, plus closing costs, which are very minimal. You're going to be out of pocket maybe a total of $79,000. Now, if you bought and sold it for the same price, let's say you bought it for $79,000, you sold it for $79,000, so you just sold it what you have into it. You need to realize that if you sell it with financing, is what almost all of my investors do, the interest rate on seller offered financing properties is 10%. So just look at this. You bought it for $75,000, you sold it for $75,000. In the first year alone, your interest, your net interest profit on that is going to be $7,500 in interest. And you just saved yourself $200,000 by not buying that condo, but by buying this piece of vacant land instead. The real benefit to this would be is if you kept it and held it for 2-3 years and then sold it at a profit. So you sold it for 110, 125, 150, whatever the going rate is, realizing how much property values are increasing in this area, then you made a true valuable financial investment. Now you say to yourself, well, you know what? That doesn't give me a property to use in the meantime. You're right, it doesn't. But look at the numbers. How much can you go and rent Belizean Shores for a month for? $4,200. And what you can really do is go on Airbnb and probably find yourself a single family home for that much money. So by buying and investing a small portion of money, getting the financial returns, it affords you the freedom to go and do other things in Belize, outside Belize, but both options are good for the right person. I have an owner right now, great client of mine, beautiful couple. They own at Belizean Shores as well, and they absolutely love it. And they could care less if they get back a dime because that is their beautiful Caribbean home. They're not looking for a financial investment, but what they are investing in is other things for the return. So here's the two options I'm presenting today. Again, just as options to give you an idea of how I think, how I work with my clients, and what potentially could work for you. So if you are interested in either one of these properties or something else like them, go ahead and email me. You have my email, DennisKii, that stands for the second, but has the first, so DennisKii@gmail.com. And what I'm going to do now is grab a glass of water. And for those of you who need to go, maybe you're at work, your lunch is ending, you need to go, thank you for attending. But for those of you who can stay on, I'm going to be taking all of your questions for at least for the next 10, 15 minutes. And why I grab a glass of water, please give me a second to renew my voice, and I will launch my last poll of the webinar, again, just so I can make these more helpful to my attendees. And please pick one of these boxes. Based on this webinar today, have you been to Belize before? Are you planning a trip down, and would you like some recommendations? If so, let me know and I will send you some. If you have been to Ambergris Caye before, put yes, that's why I'm on this webinar. And then the third option is, are you serious about owning some type of property? Let's chat. If you are, fine. Maybe we can set something up. If not, no big deal. I'm glad you attended anyway. And then finally, nah, this doesn't seem like it's for me, but thanks anyway. So please vote. I'm just going to grab a glass of water and then we'll continue with the live Q&A. All right. Whew, that's a lot of talking. All right, so it looks like the poll is going to come to a close. I'm going to close the poll. And then again, just because I think you might be interested, I'm going to share the results. So here's the results. So 40% have not been here before, 60% have, and 20% of you are serious about owning some type of property. So excellent, very good, appreciate that. All right, let me hide the results and move on to the questions. All right, so you've been typing in your questions. I will review them quickly and I'll see which ones I can answer on this webinar and which ones might take a little bit longer to answer, but let's start taking a few of them here. So I have a question here from Dennis. Dennis is a current property owner in this area of Belize. He asked the question, any idea when or if electricity will be brought to GBE or Secret Beach area? Yes, absolutely. I have an answer for that, Dennis. It's something we've been struggling with, in a sense, with BEL, the local electric company on island, for a long time. They were set to do it a few years ago, but then the new Northern Road project came about. And why that was so important is because the road going north, for those of you not familiar with Ambergris Caye, we have one main road that goes north and south. It goes from San Pedro town about 8, 9, 10 miles north. That road was a sandy, pothole-filled road in the rainy season, sometimes impassable. But what the governor of Belize needed to do is to expand that road and pave it. In order to do so, the majority of the power lines had to be moved out of the way because now they were creating a real road. Before it was just a property easement access road, so it wasn't maintained by the San Pedro Town Council. So what the BEL spent a lot of time doing, this took several months, if not a couple years, was to move those utility poles over, allow that road to be paved, because this is the road now that is going to service and lead all the way to the new international airport, which is about 13 miles north. So then we went back to and asked them, okay, when can you bring power over to Grand Belizean Estates? And for those of you looking on Google Earth, you see that Grand Belize is a very, very large subdivision, has about 1,100 lots, all of which have been sold as a complete success. Along with that subdivision, we have a couple hundred owners in Palmyra Woods, in the Ambergris Bay area, and they're all asking the question, when is power going to come over? And what the electric company is telling us is that we are ready today to start running lines, putting in poles, putting in transformers, and they say what we need are a group of homes to run the power to. They can't run a power to a home on this block and then 3 blocks away is another home, because that's not the way their equipment works. They need a little cluster of homes to run to. So that cluster looks like it's going to be at Secret Beach where it dead ends. In order to get there, they're going to have to run right through Grand Belizean Estates. And so we expect, I would hope, that power would get to these areas in the next 12, 18 months. I know it sounds like a long time compared to North American standards, but it's not that long in Belize. But I would hope, with everything going on in this area, that we're going to see power come across sooner rather than later. So I don't have a direct answer for you, Dennis, but that's my thoughts right now. All right, let's take another question. So the question here from Jane is, what is the cost per square foot to build new? All right, so for those of you looking to build, the price varies. You can get away fairly inexpensively. As an example, Will, a real estate investor, real estate agent, and property owner on Ambergris Caye, owns one of those lots. I think it's pretty close to Dennis's lot in Grand Belize. And he had a house built on the mainland by the Mennonite builders in Spanish Lookout. They built him a nice, smaller two-bedroom house out of Belizean hardwood, out of mahogany, had it shipped to the island and installed on his property. And that cost around 35,000 US. And I asked him how much is it going to be to finish it, to get your solar power, your rainwater cistern, your appliances, furnishings. He said probably maximum about under 30,000. So for about 65 to $70,000, he will have his own little home installed on his property, and property values vary, so that's not including the cost of the lot. But that was for a Belizean hardwood home. If you want to go something more higher end, like a concrete home, then I would guess that in today's values, and again, depending on your fit and finish, because I've seen homes built for 125,000 US per square foot out of concrete, all the way up to 175, 200,000, depending if you want granite countertops, what kind of windows, what kind of tile you put in. So I tell people, plan on spending about 150. But here's the kicker. When you're designing your home or working with a local architect, make sure that you go with the smallest amount of interior space as possible, but a very large amount of exterior space. And here's why. Sometimes we like to use the air conditioner. Well, electricity can be expensive in Belize. So if you have a small interior footprint, you only have a small area to cool. Interior is the most expensive to build, and really you're not going to spend a lot of time on the inside, just rainy days and maybe nighttime to sleep in. But what you can do inexpensively is build a nice huge rooftop living area that you thatch, so it's under a thatched roof palapa. That hardly costs you anything, and put an outdoor living room up there. Put indoor outdoor furniture. You can put a little mini bar up there, maybe a grill. You're going to spend most of your time in these outdoor spaces, which cost a lot less to build and maintain than your interior space. So just kind of keep that in mind when it comes to cost of what it's going to cost you to build. All right, so we have a question here by Jay. So Jay has a question. Discuss local bank financing on a condo, such as the one I presented, general qualifications and terms. All right, excellent question, Jay. So here's the deal on financing in Belize. And I'm going to be a little long-winded here because it's important, because actually it prevents or disqualifies a lot of people who want to own in Belize, and I'll give you the full answer. Just let me grab a quick drink of water. So, in Belize, if you want to go and get a property loan, and if you can't get a home equity loan where you are now, you can't get a loan in the U.S. or Canada for properties outside of those countries. For instance, a U.S. bank will not loan you money to buy property in Belize. Why? Well, because what are they going to do with it if you default? They don't want to own properties in other countries, so you have to look for other financing options. So as an example, if you go into Atlantic Bank, Belize Bank, Caye Bank, all our local bank branches on island, and you say, you know what, I want to buy this condo, it's $250,000, will you give me a loan? And they're like, sure, absolutely. Here you go. Here is our terms. Your terms are 40% down, sometimes 50% down, which would be about $110,000 to $125,000. So you need that in cash to put down as a down payment, and then the balance that bank will fund for interest rates between 10.5% to 12%. So you see, you're going to have to make a pretty substantial payment in order to chunk down that balance when your interest rates are that high. So over the 13 years that I've been buying and selling real estate on Ambergris Caye, I've had 2 clients use bank financing. So what are your other options? Well, if you need financing and you don't want to pay those types of interest rates, sometimes, and not in the case of this condo, but sometimes you can find a seller willing to offer seller financing. And most of the times they're willing to do this because they don't really need the cash. So they would say, you know what, okay, give me 20% down, I'll charge you 8% interest. Most of the time, their going rate is 10%, but on a larger purchase, they might go 8%. And so you get a much better deal working with a private seller than you would working with one of the local banks. And the general qualifications, Jay, are basically the same as you would see anywhere. They don't run a credit check. So I think at least the last couple of times I worked with them, they didn't run one, and you just have to show basic income statements and show that you can prove to keep up with the payments on the property. But also, they will make you take out a life insurance policy on yourself, because if you die, they don't want to be stuck with the property either. Banks don't like holding on to defaulted property, so they will make you take out a life insurance policy so that if you die, the property is paid in full, and there you go. So it's another reason, Jay, why so many people are bullish on buying vacant land as compared to completed properties, such as other high-end condos. Like this one is very affordable for $250, but other condos, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, on the ocean, again, start at $450, $475, and again, those are for the most part cash purchases. People are plopping down cash for those, and they're not usually getting financing. So if you can find someone willing to finance, it's really worth it to take a close look. So hopefully that answers your question, and let's go on. All right, very good. Very good. So let's just check our time here. I have a few more questions, but I don't know if I can answer them in the time allowed. So let me just, if anybody has a smaller question I can answer maybe in maybe 5 minutes, go ahead and ask. All right. Very good. Okay, longer one there. Longer one there. Okay. All right, good. Good, good, good. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Listen, it is 1:04 Eastern Standard Time. I think I'll wrap up here. But again, I appreciate you very, very much for attending today. We have a good number of people on today who already own property. Thanks for attending. Again, next week, I'm going to be presenting some really unique investment numbers. So if you would tune in, great. If you can't do it 2 weeks in a row, no problem. Register anyway, and I'll send you the link. For those of you just looking, if this information was of benefit to you, please shoot me an email just to say hello, and maybe some of the things that you got out of it that you didn't know before, and perhaps questions that you have based on this webinar that you always think of something afterward. So the webinar ends like, oh man, I had this question I should have asked. Go ahead. I try to get back with everybody at least in the next 24 hours, and I take your patronage and your business very seriously. Thank you very much, guys. This is Dennis Caye, Belize Islands Real Estate, signing off, wishing everybody a great day, and I hope to see you in paradise soon.